Some people ask me to talk about this Russia-Ukraine crisis that goes on, or better said, this Russian invasion of Ukraine. I didn't want to talk about it yet because I still want to see how the war would progress. Now, we are more than a week further. Sanctions have been put in place, and over 1 million Ukrainians fled their country, according to the latest statistics. Now, I won't talk about the amount of dead Russian soldiers because Ukraine says one thing, Russia says another, and the UK says another thing also, so it's a bit confusion over there. But that's not what matters. What matters is the following. This Russia-Ukraine situation is a symptom of something much deeper. Some say, Rashid, the deeper thing has to do with NATO, because Russia never wanted NATO to expand. But hold on a minute. Didn't the Baltic states join NATO? And Russia didn't do anything about it? Why didn't Russia invade back then? Or did anything about it? Nah, it goes much deeper than that. Forget about NATO, forget about the EU, forget about the former Soviet Union. What this comes down to is the following. Europeans want to go back to military blood sacrifice. Some say, Rashid, how can you say that? Europeans want to go back. Now let me explain. War is blood sacrifice. You kill a portion of your own population just to prove that your society is worth it. That is what war is about. It doesn't matter who attacked first. It doesn't matter which violation happened. It's all about validating your society. That is it. So anytime there's disintegration happening in your society, you, together with another society or with another country, you agree on a fight. The soldiers' belief is a real thing. The public belief is a real thing. And you play out the ritual. And of course, there's going to be real human beings dying, including civilians, and the trauma is what bonds people together. That is the spell of warfare. The spell is so strong that after the ritual is done, for at least a decade, people consider themselves a strong community. Now, since the Second World War, Europeans limited this war propaganda. Now, there was still war going on in the world, absolutely. But in Europe, they decided we don't want war anymore. The only time there was an actual outbreak of full-scale war was when former Yugoslavia fell apart. But I'm not here to talk about that situation, it's another topic. What it comes down to is that European civilization, or the civilization, or you can say the Western world, is built on militarism. One sector of militarism is colonialism or imperialism. When you, for centuries, looted the rest of the world, that becomes your basis of identification. You can't just stop looting the world, leaving all the other nations alone, and then expect to go on in peace. Your public is used to this strong connection generated by the spell of warfare. Now, instead of warfare, other substitutes were used. In liberal democracy, for example, rock and roll, using drugs, feminism, the promotion of promiscuity. Later, you had the rainbow community that came in. You know which community I'm talking about. All of these things were used as substitutes for the spell of warfare. However, the liberal escapism did not work. The liberal escapism brought more problems, including an aging population, due to the sexual effectiveness that it generated in the public. The public already had sexual effectiveness, but it became worse. So now the public has enough. So now the public secretly is longing for the good old days. Now I'm not saying that everyone in the public does this, but in general you see a trend of the public wanting to become more conservative. People are resisting the liberal escapism, which includes things as multiculturalism. And there's also this woke culture that emerged. This woke culture is nothing but worldlings pointing out the defects of the same world. But the world doesn't want to face the defects. They want someone to blame or they want to escape. So now you have people resisting the woke culture. Now I'm not saying that everything about woke culture is correct. No, woke culture is wrong on various points. Nevertheless, it serves as a mirror that things are wrong. Things need to be addressed. People don't want that. So with the liberal escapes not working, what else do people have? You got it. If they don't want to serve Christ, nor follow his ways, then the only thing left for them is a spell of warfare. Many taboos and traditions in the post-World War II Europe have been broken past week to assist Ukraine. Some countries who have a tradition of being neutral broke that tradition. Now, this shows you that there's a sacrificial crisis going on. Now, I'm not saying that the spell of warfare will cover all conflicts in a community. It covers most. It brings relief to most. In this case, the soldiers become the blood sacrifice. They become the victims of the community. And in daily life, when there is no warfare going on, you have the scapegoats of the community that people dump upon. However, though, to the enforcement of human rights and the awareness of human rights, the idea of just randomly picking up people and use them as punching bags, people don't take it anymore. But because of that now, when society has its negative tension, how are you going to get rid of the negative tension if you don't have people to dump it upon? In that case, everyone begins to dump one another like crazy. Everyone goes after everyone. In the archaic traditions, you only go after those with a low rank. You go after the homeless, you go after the disabled people, or you go after the migrants, or you go after people from African ancestry. Now that you have those archaic models in place, because they've been deemed cruel and uncivilized, now you need to deal with the reality that the world is dysfunctional. Now, people don't want to face dysfunction, just want to escape, but you can't always escape. And here's the thing, when worldlings can't escape, it will escalate. Oh, but here it comes. Though too, the whole promotion of human rights, how can you promote human rights and still dump on people? That's going to make you look stupid. It's going to be humiliating. So now there are people longing back to the archaic past in which people could freely dump on the scapegoats and the spell of warfare could be enacted every generation just to purge the masses of their pollution. That is what it's all about. But people don't look deep into the situation. Now, do people want to go to war? For example, picking up the guns and go and fight? Well, there are fanatics who want that. But in general, the public doesn't want to actually be in the war. Even in the past, when the spell of warfare was common, the common individual didn't want to go to war. They want the outcome of warfare, namely the relief that it brings society, but they don't want to be in the war themselves. They don't want to get harmed themselves. That's why when soldiers die in warfare, they get so much honor. Why? Because they purged the public from having to face themselves. And that is where the Western world is heading towards. That is what's going on now. And with the Western world, I don't only mean Europe, I also mean North America, Australia, New Zealand, and likely also Taiwan, Japan, and South Korea. First, I'm going to talk about Europe. Then I expand into the Western world. Because the Western world is the sphere of influence of Europe, mainly the Western European countries. So understand this. This Russia-Ukraine conflict is a symptom. But the underlying trouble is the sacrificial crisis that goes on in the Western world. The public needs people to escalate their unrest upon, or else they end up committing mass suicide. When the population doesn't have people to dump upon, and the negative tension keeps increasing, people begin to lose their mind, domestic violence increases, and the public self-destructs. So the spell of warfare was invented by the ancient Greeks, and it's been used till this day to deter mass suicide of the public. That is how simple it is. There are two ways to exist. One, you serve the Heavenly Father, you operate a life in abundance. The second is you become narcissistic, seeking for people to drain. Now, not everyone in the world turns reprobate. However, the longer you remain without Christ, the closer you become to reprobation. And right now, the Western world has a high percentage of reprobates. And those reprobates do not have enough victims to dump upon. So the reprobates are going to turn on their fellow human beings. Now, in previous times, warfare, and as well as daily living sacrifices, so people you abuse and force to be dysfunctional, and then everyone looks down on them, the spell of warfare and living sacrifices were the methods that kept the public at ease. Now, though the human rights, living sacrifices is something people don't want to even talk about anymore, even though it still happens, and warfare was pushed to the background, but they didn't serve Christ. So now the choice is to the masses. Are we going to continue chasing relief and end up destroying one another, or are we going to submit to Heavenly Father and do His will? Well, based on prophecy, we know which way the world will go, and it won't be the right way. As a believer, do not let this bother you. Just keep on walking by faith, do what you have to do. You can pray for the people in Ukraine and Russia who are willing to receive solutions. Because remember, you can only help those who want solutions, not those who just want to escape. Well, that's it for now. Keep on agreeing with Christ and be at peace.